you are an Alison wine promo person, thank you for being over there. We've switched it basically from, buying a couple bottles here and there to now being in a club. So you get a shipment every 3 months of 6 amazing bottles of wine. I just tried the Rioja from Spain yesterday. These are all, the foodie of the foodie wines. They're from very small vineyards. They're all very limited edition, like very few bottles. You can't get them at the grocery store. They're high altitude in most cases. Natural fermentation processes, no dyes, no chemicals, no filtration, all that good stuff. And it's a great way to just always have something as a present, or go to the awkward cocktail party, or you unfriended grandma and you're listening to Leslie and you're like, oh, Leslie convinced me grandma was right. And so, you know what? Grandma likes to drink. She likes her wine. Can't hold it against her. She's made it to 95. She deserves to have a bottle while she's watching Leave It to Beaver at night. So get her a nice bottle of wine. Don't make her chuck up, some boxed wine because she's, whatever. She's living on a tight budget. Get her a nice bottle of wine. Show grandma you care. AlisonWinePromo.com. Father's Day is coming up. It's not too late to get your order in for Father's Day. So let me take you over to the questions at Locals really quickly. Actually, you know what? No, before I do that, I just want to go over to one other thing. Because we were talking about the dialectic here, the back and forth, and that it gives fuel for the fire when those of us who are in the health freedom movement get it wrong, and then we amplify something, it gives fuel to the fire. And I'm not saying I maybe that, there are people who just didn't understand. I know you're saying like maybe a lot of people are clickbait friendly, but it is kind of complicated legalese. And so I can understand how maybe some people just didn't quite get it. It happens all the time in mainstream media, give people the benefit of the doubt. There are people who just don't understand how this stuff works, and they don't take the time to call you or write you and say, hey, I just want to make sure I understand correctly. That's why I try to bring people on in person so we can really get the firsthand experience. But basically, I would say this is the word that sums up the whole article, that if you're somebody who thinks this was a win, you're totally misguided. That's what misguided is the word. You're misguided. And, this is it. This is the courts generally find that the government has a legitimate interest in protecting the populace in these ways. And she also, this person, Rice, added that she considers the appellate court's interpretation of the 1905 case to be a bad decision. Right. And then Wiley calls it misguided. These are their, legal experts that they have talking about it. So, yeah, it just gives the people reading this the sense that, first off, your lawsuit is trying to keep the government from protecting people. That's one of the takeaways I have, that it's about that the government's trying to protect people, and you guys are just making it very hard for them to protect people. And then also, if you are supportive of this, it's misguided. Or if, you're thinking that this is a win in any way, that you're just misguided. And we're going to explain it to you because we're smarter. We'll help you see the truth. Those are kind of my big takeaways from this. And that's typically how this is written, but I just want to get a response from you on that.
Yeah. So first, there are plenty of bad actors who appear to be on our side. They will sensationalize this because it actually then taints all of us with craziness, extremists, writing making outlandish claims. So I think that's something I want to just make sure I note. Then that this is misguided, that we're claiming this is as a win. Nothing could be further from the truth. This is I was on a call earlier with a bunch of attorneys, and they all said this is a legal earthquake for those of us who believe in bodily autonomy. And I would love to ask Dory and whoever the other author is there, or the other person quoted, do you believe in abortion? And this is why it's so important in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, because the Ninth Circuit has led the way in the United States with respect to law protecting the right to privacy and to bodily autonomy. They are doing, they want you to have unfettered access to abortion. And so you can't have it both ways. How do you get bodily autonomy for abortion, but not bodily autonomy for medical interventions that don't do anything? And then the next step is, how do you get why shouldn't you have bodily autonomy for something like a shot, which can fail, which can harm you, which is not perfect at all, and which, we should all be free to make these choices for ourselves. Those people, I I'm almost certain, take money from the pharmaceutical industry. And so, I mean, I would treat their opinions with a little bit of caution. Dorit has been in this role for at least 10 years where she's been writing about all this kind of stuff. And she always takes the mainstream view and always defends the vaccine industry. So,
It seems like we're at a point where I don't know if that's what the term lawfare stands for. It's like warfare by law, but we're just suing left and right to get the government to step back in line. It I don't know what kind of if this is a winning strategy. It feels like we're all the onus is on on all of us to sue, to like have the funds or to find a group like yours and sue, 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 sue. When I just, I mean, maybe it's wishful thinking, but it would just be nice if the government just would follow the law so that we wouldn't have to sue constantly. But I'm just curious, what do you think about this as a phenomenon that
yeah.
more and more we're having, I know what your group does, but it's like it's not necessarily at the fingertips of everyone. To me, I question whether it's really a winning strategy to be like stuck in that the court system is now going to have to figure out our freedoms for us constantly. Like are we losing by having to sue over and over and over and over again, or do you just say no, this is what the judicial system was set up for by the founding fathers, and this is what we should be doing? Because I just question whether like this is a winning strategy long term for all of us to just have to sue to keep our rights.
Well, of course, in an ideal world, we would not be having to have the government wouldn't be allowed to implement laws or rules that were unconstitutional. That would be determined before they were ever implemented. But that's not the way it works. It's not the world we live in. These guys do whatever they want. And then, unfortunately, the onus is on us to stop them. If we had not sued, we might still have a mask mandate in place. We stopped the federal travel mask mandate. That could still be in place if we hadn't sued. So, I mean, it's an unfortunate reality, but it is the reality that these people are pushing anything they want and relying on the hope that we won't organize ourselves. We won't donate to support this kind of work. We won't secure legal representation and hold them accountable and push back. But we have to, because you know what? It is one of the few things standing in the way of utter tyranny in this country. Think about what would happen if it weren't for some of these wins that we've had. And it's at the corporate level too. We just won a case against Disney recently. They treated their employees as though they were disposable. They treated this one in particular who was a conservative Christian as though she was a pariah because she was a conservative Christian unvaccinated. That's not okay. And so we have to hold them accountable. But there is no doubt that we live in a kind of post-constitutional order where the government thinks it can do whatever it wants. And lawsuits are just one mechanism for pushing back. One mechanism. I'd like us to get to a system where that's not the case. I think it's totally inverted. Like I said, the onus shouldn't be on us to raise tons of money to go and file lawsuits. It shouldn't. The onus should be on the government to demonstrate that its policies are actually constitutional and don't violate our rights from the outset. That's the way a healthy system would work, but it's not the way our system works right now. And let me just address the lawfare point because it's very important. And I have a fantastic example of lawfare.
Did I get the definition right?
What
does lawfare mean?
Lawfare is using lawsuits to threaten people, harass people, consume their time and their resources.
Oh, okay.
That's what lawfare. So this is what the Los Angeles Unified School District did to us.
Okay.
In the fall of 2023, when we said that we are going to appeal, they motioned the district court to sanction our attorneys, stating that the case had been frivolous. And they also asked the court to grant $209,000 of attorney's fees to them. They wanted us to have to pay their attorney's fees. So we then had to spend, I forget how much money it was, $50,000 or something, defending ourselves, defending our attorneys. They said the lawsuit was frivolous, literally, that defending employees who didn't want to inject themselves with an experimental medical intervention, that was somehow frivolous. Thankfully, the district court saw right through it. But my point is, that's lawfare, because they forced us to expend our precious resources, tons of time, threatened, literally being sanctioned by the court as an attorney is a huge ethics issue. So that's lawfare. It's literally weaponizing the legal system against somebody you don't like, or trying to, harass them and bully them and intimidate them.
If you are somebody who has been interested in turning over your 401k or IRA into physical gold, this is a great way to support the show. Let them know that you're watching and get the information that you have been wanting to get. This is definitely a good time to consider it. We, for the first time in our history, are paying more on the national debt, on interest on the national debt, more than really everything else except for Social Security, which means that we are spending more on interest than even on the defense budget or Medicare, which is crazy. And it's getting worse. So central banks, concerned savers are turning to gold. And that is not something that is tied to the US dollar, because people are getting concerned about inflation. And you can too, with the help of Birch Gold. They've been in business for over 20 years. They've helped thousands of Americans protect their savings by turning over to gold with their IRA or 401k. Again, text Alison, ALISON, 989-898. So text 989-898. Just put Alison, ALISON, in the text message bar. You will claim your free, no obligation info kit on gold. Thanks to Birch Gold for that. Okay, we are going to bring in Leslie right now.